We still have a month left in the college football season, and as of right now, the Heisman race is really close. If you look at the betting market, there isn't a clear favorite, and there's a number of players who have really good odds to win the Heisman Trophy. Today, we're going to be taking a look at the 10 players who I think have the best chance of taking home the Heisman Trophy at the end of the season. But before we get to all that, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on those notifications if you're new to my channel. If you're watching this video, odds are you love college football, and odds are you aren't subscribed to my channel, so make sure to subscribe to one of the best college football communities here on YouTube. This isn't going to be a typical Heisman video that I've done in years past where I give my personal top 10, because honestly, I think that's really difficult to do at this point. What I'm going to do is break it down into two categories. I have a category of the players who I think are legitimate contenders as of right now, and another category with players who I think are still in the running, but they need to have a fantastic November and potentially have a couple of other players fall off just a bit. So starting in the category of players I think are still in the hunt, we're going to go with Colorado quarterback Sharrif Sanders. He was fantastic for Colorado in 2023, but he's been even better in 2024. Through 8 games, Sanders has thrown for 2,600 yards with 21 passing touchdowns and only 6 interceptions. He's also completing 73% of his passes. He's currently number 6 in the country in passing yards, number 3 in the country in passing touchdowns, and number 4 in the country in completion percentage. With the exception of the Nebraska game, he's been pretty fantastic in every game this year. He's thrown for 300 yards in 5 games and has at least 2 passing touchdowns in all but 1. Sharrif Sanders could very well finish inside the top 3 in passing yards and passing touchdowns, but it's going to be a little difficult for him to win considering he has a teammate that we're going to talk about later in this video. If you would have told me that Clemson quarterback Cade Klubnik would be in the Heisman discussion entering November after what he did in week 1, I would have called you crazy. But it's been quite the turnaround for Clemson's quarterback. In 7 games, he's thrown for just under 2,000 yards with 20 passing touchdowns and only 3 interceptions. He's also added 250 yards on the ground with 4 rushing scores as well. After that awful start to their season, Clemson hasn't lost a game and they're on the verge of making the college football playoff, and that's largely because of Klubnik. He's thrown for at least 300 yards in 3 games, including back-to-back games surpassing that number. He's also had 3 passing touchdowns in 5 of 7 games, including a game with 5 passing touchdowns and a game with 4 passing touchdowns. There's been a lot of great quarterback plays so far in 2020, but honestly, I think Cade Klubnik has been the most surprising quarterback for me. Maybe it's because we've grown so accustomed to it, but Jackson Dart is having another fantastic season, and it's actually been the best season of his career up until this point. Through 8 games, he's completing 70% of his passes and has thrown for 2,700 yards with 15 passing touchdowns and only 3 interceptions. On the ground, he's also added 200 yards with 3 rushing scores as well. Dart is currently number 3 in the country in passing yards and number 3 in the country in passing efficiency rating. Honestly, the only reason his odds aren't better is because Ole Miss already has 2 losses this year that really hurt his chances. I mean, he's currently 3rd in the country with 2,900 total yards and has 18 touchdowns responsible for. If Ole Miss continues to win games and Jackson Dart continues to light up the stat sheet, he'll continue to stay in the Heisman discussion and might make a late season push. Now, you won't find his name high atop the betting odds, but I want to give a shout out to Army quarterback Bryson Dy, who has been fantastic this season for Army and has them undefeated and potentially on the verge of a playoff spot. Through 7 games this year, the quarterback has only thrown for 630 yards with 7 passing touchdowns, but it's been what he's done on the ground. He's already rushed for nearly 1,000 yards, averaging almost 7 yards per attempt, and he has 19 rushing touchdowns, which leads the entire country. He's rushed for at least 110 yards in 6 of his 7 games. I know that a quarterback from Army who might not even throw for 2,000 yards on the season likely isn't going to be invited to the Heisman ceremony, but if Army finishes the season going undefeated and they're a playoff-bound team, if he finishes the season with nearly 2,000 rushing yards and close to 30 touchdowns, plus whatever he does through the air, I think he's more than deserving of being a legitimate Heisman contender. Another player that doesn't really have that high of betting odds, but definitely should, is Washington State quarterback John Mateer. Through 8 games, he's thrown for 2,100 yards and has 18 passing touchdowns. He's also been an absolute beast on the ground as he's rushed for 600 yards with 10 rushing scores. I mean, you can make the case that John Mateer has been a top 5 quarterback in all of college football this season. He's 4th in the country with 2,700 total yards and he's second in the country with 28 total touchdowns. The only reason he's not getting more respect is because he's on Washington State, but we should be giving the Cougars respect considering they're 7-1 on this season and they're currently ranked inside the top 25. When you look at the numbers, he's been top 5 and he's playing on a top 25 team, so I don't know why his odds aren't a lot higher. The final player in my group of they're still in the running but they're not necessarily a favorite is Alabama quarterback Jalen Milroe. He's on pace to have an even better season than he did last year when he finished 6th in Heisman voting. So far through 8 games, he's thrown for 2,000 yards with 13 passing touchdowns. He's also added 400 yards on the ground with 12 rushing scores. The only reason Jalen Milroe probably isn't in that next group is because Alabama has lost 2 of their last 4 games. Now, they're still alive in the playoff hunt and they could finish with a really good record, but those 2 games really hurt Jalen Milroe's chances. Not to mention, the last couple of weeks, he just hasn't been all that great. He's still putting up some really solid numbers, but they're not Heisman caliber numbers as of right now. Alright, so we're done with that group. Let's get to the 4 players that I currently have in the group where they're legitimately in the running and these guys can actually win the Heisman Trophy. Also, this isn't going to be in any particular order. I don't have a 1 through 4. These are just the 4 players who I think have the best chance as of right now to win the Heisman. We'll start with Oregon quarterback Dillon Gabriel, who has been fantastic in his first season with the Ducks. Through 8 games, Oregon's undefeated and they're currently ranked number 1 in the AP poll. He's completing 76% of his passes and is thrown for 2,400 yards with 18 passing touchdowns and only 5 interceptions. He's also added 5 touchdowns on the ground as well. Those are really solid numbers for Dillon Gabriel and he's going to finish with a really solid season, but the fact that he has Oregon number 1, that's what gives him the bonus points as of right now. Like if Oregon finishes the season ranked 10 to 15, I don't think the numbers he finishes with are going to be enough to give him that Heisman Trophy. So his best bet at winning is for Oregon to finish the season undefeated and is the number 1 team in college football. Up next is another transfer quarterback in Miami quarterback Cam Ward. He's been phenomenal for the Hurricanes this season as they're currently undefeated and they're on the verge of a potential playoff berth as well. He's thrown for 2,700 yards with 24 passing touchdowns and 5 interceptions. He's also added 200 yards on the ground with 3 rushing scores. Ward has been lighting up the stat sheet and he's a large reason that Miami is still undefeated. He's already had some Heisman level performances, including on the road at Cal when he threw for 450 yards with 3 total touchdowns and led a comeback win. Then on the road at Louisville in his next game, he threw for 320 yards with 4 passing touchdowns. This is the 3rd program that Ward has been at the last 4 seasons, and I don't think Miami or even Cam Ward could have expected him to be this good this year. Earlier, I mentioned Sharrif Sanders, and the reason I didn't have him in this group was because he had a teammate here. Well, that teammate is Travis Hunter. You can make the case he's the best overall player in college football this year, as he's doing it on both sides of the ball. We'll start in the receiving game, as he's been one of the best wide receivers in all of college football this season. In 8 games, he's caught 60 passes for 750 yards with 8 receiving touchdowns. He leads the Big 12 in receptions and receiving touchdowns and is 3rd in the conference in receiving yards. He's also 6th in the country in catches and 6th in the country in receiving touchdowns as well. So right off the bat, he's one of the 5 best receivers in all of college football, but oh yeah, he also plays defense as well. Defensively, Hunter has 21 tackles with 1 tackle for loss, 2 interceptions, 7 pass breakups, and a forced fumble. His 7 pass breakups actually lead the Big 12. It's also really helping his case that Colorado is actually winning this year and they're 6-2 on the season, and there's a slight chance they could actually reach the college football playoff. The final player on today's list is Boise State running back Ashton Jenty, who's currently on pace towards having one of the best seasons we've ever seen from a college football running back. Through 7 games, he's rushed for 1,400 yards, averaging 9 yards per attempt. He also has 18 rushing touchdowns as well. The crazy thing for Jenty is his numbers could be so much better. There have been a couple games this year where Boise State was up by so much at the half, they pulled him in the second half and he didn't even play 4 full quarters. I mean, just this past weekend, he had his worst game of the season where he ran for 130 yards with a rushing score. So far this season, he has 5 games with at least 185 rushing yards. He also has 4 games with at least 3 rushing touchdowns. I mean, based on what he's done through the first 7 games, he's on pace to finish this season with around 2,700 rushing yards and 36 rushing touchdowns. If he posts those kind of numbers and Boise State goes to the college football playoff, I think Ashton Jenty is going to be the Heisman winner. Well, that wraps it up for today's video. Who is your Heisman pick with 1 month left in the college football season? Also, if there was a player who should have been in this discussion that I didn't include, let me know in the comment section down below. Before you leave, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on the those notifications if you're new to my channel. I'm posting college football videos all season long, so make sure to subscribe so you never miss a video. Also, don't forget to drop a like on this video as well. It helps out with that YouTube algorithm and helps share the video and my channel with more college football fans. Plus, it only takes a second to do. As always, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you all in my next video.